Thanks for a lovely introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be a part of the festival and hosting such esteemed authors and talking about such a beautiful topic. We'll try to wrap it up in 45 minutes, but this individually deserves days of conversation. But we'll start with, ma'am, the first question. You've spoken, you are a CBT practitioner, and the word sadness is such a loosely used word today. You know, people just say, I'm just sad, and there could be so many other things which are hidden under that. So, what is sadness, and how does your practice actually help identify it and go to the root cause of it?
So that question, it's a good opening question, because you mentioned that sadness is such a loosely used word. So it is all encompassing. So I would like anyone to raise their hand if you meet these two conditions, that you have never felt sad in your life, or you do not know anyone who has ever felt sad in their life. So anyone who meets these two criteria, please raise your hands. That you've never felt sad and you don't know anyone who's ever felt sad. Nobody. There was going to be a prize for the person who did. Okay, so you missed it. Sadness is not just a loosely used term. It is true that none of us have never felt sad. But that being said, to answer your question, my book particularly, it breaks down sadness as a cover for plenty of other emotions. So if you just think that as a simple emotion, I feel sad, because it is one of the basic human emotions, one of the 6 basic human emotions is sadness. So it is but obvious that we have felt sad. But when you don't know why you feel the way you feel, you can't do anything to change it. So that's where, like an onion, we peel and remove the different layers, and we unmask what you're actually feeling at the depth. And that is usually something else. It could be frustration, it could be restlessness, disappointment, anxiety. And so when you ask, why do I feel so sad? That's when you actually get the answer as to what you might be able to do about it. So sadness is often used without recognizing that deep down, I'm not feeling good because I didn't get those marks in an exam, or I'm not feeling good because my marriage broke. So that makes me sad, but I'm actually frustrated or disappointed, or I'm feeling sad because something bad is going to happen. So that's actually your anxiety there. So it's not exactly sadness. So when you break it down, you give it a label. We just use sadness as a feeling of not being happy, and then you say, what's happiness? Oh, when I'm not sad, I'm happy. So we've got to define things better and be more mindful of your emotions. I think the more you label what you feel, and when you want to label it, you'll also have to understand why you feel the way you feel. And your frustration or disappointment, again, fine, it's not sadness, it's disappointment. So then what do I do about it? That's when we get to the cognitive distortion, that I have expectations that I should be able to do everything that I set out to. So that becomes your cognitive distortion of shoulding, right? There's a chapter called shoulding or masturbation, that we use the word should and must a lot. So original terms coined by Dr. Albert Ellis, by Dr. Aaron Beck, by Dr. David Burns. So when you break that down, your all-encompassing sadness will then become more specific, and then you will be able to deal with it better.
So, well, there are so many feelings. Sadness has its own place, right? How does one identify what they're feeling, and how do they choose the right tool? I mean, and what is CBT? We can just break it up in a little more detailed way.
For simply, you have to expand your lexicon of feelings, because if we just know that I feel good and I don't feel good, then that leaves only 2 emotions on earth, right? And your feeling doesn't change, but your expression of it would change. Likewise, just to say that she's not a good friend, she's a very mean friend, versus, or I'm a failure because I didn't pass this exam. So that lexicon, when it changes, when I am a failure becomes I just didn't do very well in that exam because I had a lot going on, and my self-worth is intrinsic. It is not defined by how well or badly I do in an exam. It's simply changing the lexicon. So we may say, hey, we need to improve our grammar and we need to learn better English to use more fancy words, for example, for our emotion. But it's not just the fanciness of the word, it is what you mean because of it. So that is how just changing a noun to a verb, I failed, is very different from I am a failure. Because I am a failure becomes a label that sticks with you, it's stuck on your forehead like a scarlet letter A. So that, if we remove, then we start understanding that it's a verb which can change. It's an action which can change. So cognitive behavior therapy does exactly that. It's breaking down why you feel the way you feel, understanding the twist, or I call that chapter, identify the kink in the way you think. So when you identify that kink, you can untwist your thinking and then you'll start thinking rationally. It's like wearing a dark filter over your eyes and suddenly everything's looking dark. But when that filter is removed, the world looks bright again. So CBT is that method of untwisting your thinking to start seeing things more in a, I would say, more accepting light or more amenable to change.
Right.
Because when it becomes fixed, when it becomes rigid, when it's carved in stone, that's when it's not amenable to change. And what's not going to change is going to stick. That is why prolonged sadness becomes a depression, which then sticks as a diagnosis.
Right. But a lot of people don't realize they're sad for a very long time. When is a good time to do this therapy? Because there's never a good time for anything. And there is a good time for everything, right? Like, when does one decide that I need to do this?
I think you should seek therapy and visit a professional in general before even starting. I think when you're at the happiest peak of your life, even then you should visit a professional. I think it's about learning. Like I want to actually create a course called Psychology for Dummies or Mental Health for Dummies, so that we think, there was a time where we would not go to the gym if our body weight was fine. We thought going to work out, maybe 15, 20 years ago, and maybe 30 years ago when I was young and just about growing up, oh, my body weight is fine, so I don't need to work out. No, we need to work out to build your endurance. Likewise, a mental workout, I call it like the engine oil check that you do in a car. You don't have to wait till that light is flashing super red till the point that your car shuts down. But we even ignore that flashing light. That little bit of lack of sleep, that little bit of excessive anger or frustration, just not feeling like doing your most favorite thing, just not enjoying your most favorite dish. That's when you should recognize that something is amiss. So that's when you would actually know that at this time, let me check out what's really going on with me. Like, it's in every other profession, when you visit a doctor, the doctor asks the patient, hey, how are you doing? Okay, in mental health, because I'm a psychiatrist, and so the patients come to me and say, Doc, how am I doing? So that's when you recognize that I don't know how I'm feeling and I want to ask somebody else. So I'll ask them 10 questions, and based on those questions, I'll tell them this is how you are doing. So I think you should visit a professional, like how in the Western countries, hey, I'm going to meet my shrink today. It's something that you announce. It's something that you're very happy to speak about, which is quite the contrary in India. Typically in South Asia, Southeast Asian countries, it comes with a lot of stigma, it comes with a lot of taboo. So the fact that you are not feeling well is itself bad enough, and then to top that, you're meeting someone. So the worst statement I hear from people is, Doc, just look at me, I'm so bad, I need to meet someone like you. They make that face and they put it in such a derogatory way. I said, hey, it's not that bad to talk to me. I'm not that bad a person. But just because I'm a psychiatrist, it becomes bad to see me. So when that changes,
right,
that would be the turning point in our lives, when we'll be willing to talk about how we feel and do something to change it.
So I think you spoke about there's never a good time for, like, you can get therapy when you're happy as well. I think I would like to use this as a segue to speak to Trishna, because Trishna, you were in a corporate field and then you suddenly switched and you're a self-taught artist. You are a professional painter and you use a creative process to heal. How do you think people process their grief or meet themselves through a creative process? Like, is there something specific that you talk to people about?
I think processing your grief is a very subjective and personal journey. So when you look at art as one of the mediums, and when I say art, because you also said that you are from the entertainment business.
Right.
So it could be literary, it could be fine arts, it could be visual arts, which comes under fine arts, it could be theatre, it could be anything. Is a process of giving out another channel, a medium of expression. So it's not necessarily because you're feeling a particular emotion, just like sadness, grief is an extension of that. It's more got to do with how you're progressing through your journey. And this becomes your channel. So they always say that when you go through a lot is when you channel out to become a creative person, is because the depth that you have is so much more than what you could possibly have in a way. So when they come for sessions which is got to do with art therapy or sound therapy, sound healing, sound meditation, or it's got to do with dance therapy. The word therapy is put in to get that seriousness to something when you're coming for something, but at the same time it's not clinical. That's why it's alternative mode. So it's not mathematics. It's not 2 + 2 is 4. It's very subjective. It could be 0, it could be infinity. So you find yourself along the journey.
So you connect with, so for example, when I play the piano, and whenever I do that, on a bad day I play it, on a good day I play it, but that is the time where I feel at peace. It's something which is not premeditative. It's something which goes with the flow, and it's pure. It's not adulterated, right? So does creative practice really connect you? Like, is there a science to it? Or because a lot of people keep saying this, right? Do something creative, go for a walk, or paint, or sing, anything for the cook, right? What does it exactly do? And connecting back to your book, what is that one thing which you want to convey with it?
So I think I would take it in the way of your question. I'll twist it around and make it a little more deeper as to how do emotions work when we are working with our mind. So I think first let's understand what the mind is. So let's take that entire derail through that and then come to this, like the medium for it. So it's all in your mind is the subject of our talk as well. Now mind is the manifestation of our thoughts, of our emotions, of memory, imagination, our perception, and even our determination within the brain. Okay, so the mind is not the brain. The brain is a physical organ. The mind is the awareness of the consciousness. It is about how you behave in a particular way, so how you control your actions, how you comprehend what you're doing, and also understand why you're doing it. So it's literally every second is your mind. You coming here and sitting here is also a thought. You know, so if you're working along those lines, that's why your brain will be an organ. So even if you take Einstein's brain, when they did research, it was just an organ. They were like, how is he a genius? It's his mind. It's his imagination. If you take Mozart's art and you look at it, because we're talking about music, it's again the imagination, the thoughts and the processes which has created that mind. So how you channelize your mind is what makes you work around things. Now if you divide it and segregate it into 2 parts, you would also have one stage where you're a strong mind, you would have one stage where you're a fragile mind. So that's why each individual's mind is different. It'll never be the same. You cannot have a list of things, you know, like this is how it needs to be. So what will be a person with a strong mind? A person with a strong mind will look for newer avenues. He or she will not be bothered about what others are thinking. It's more about self-growth. So you're not, ultimately all of us are looking at happiness and peace. Like you said, when you do a certain thing, you're looking at the calm, the peace. The journey is what makes all the difference. So what do you have to see as a journey? Life is a journey. Your timeline is not a deadline. It's your life which you're living. And in that, what segregations you make to have a strong mind. And it's not a signature. Like for instance, if you sign, that stays with you. That's your signature. A strong mind can always be upgraded for the better. So even if you belong to a fragile mindset, because that's the environment you had and that's the way of working and where you got stuck at a certain process where sadness comes as an emotion, a very strong emotion that you're dealing with, how do you move towards a mindset? So how you develop a growth mindset. That's one thing. other thing is coming to when you take creativity into the forte, you always have to work in a way of what are you doing to channelize your emotions. You have to control your emotions, not let them control you. So how do you do that? Firstly, identify your emotions, label them. After labeling them, as it was said, always, so for instance, if you're coming for this networking event, if any of us felt, why am I even going there? What am I going to do there? So these are your thoughts are moving in a direction which is taking you away from the present. Rather, it should be, I'll go there, I'll meet new people, I'll open up new avenues. So you're upgrading your knowledge. You have to educate yourself for life. Once you make knowledge as power, you're moving towards the dimension. You're learning, you're upgrading your mindset. That is then the tools become these things. You're either into music, or you're into dance, or you're into art, or you're into meditation, like you rightly said. So if you're going to be taking up one emotional thought, for instance, you felt angry. So what does an emotion do? It'll have 4 patterns. You will first feel a particular trigger.
Right.
Then you will have a body response. Then you will have the feeling, and then you'll behave. So how you remove that behavior pattern and move towards, I felt something. Now suppose someone's feeling angry, you cannot sit and meditate at that point, when they're count the numbers. It's not going to be possible. But what is the immediate thing? Probably you can change your switch. You can call up someone and speak to someone, not about the same incident. Change your switch. You can meditate. You can do this thing. So that's a very important key in making your life holistic. And that comes in every sphere, which was mentioned. It comes from mentally you meditate. So remove 1 hour. How you're upgrading your mindset. Physically you exercise 20-25 minutes. It's not about your body weight. It's about how you're feeling, your soul consciousness, because your mind is finally your awareness of your consciousness.
Just to interrupt you, you spoke about self-awareness. Does self-awareness come first and then the art, or does the art come first and then the self-awareness?
I think you have to be aware to do anything. Even if you're brushing your teeth, even if it's on autopilot or driving a car, that is also awareness.
So awareness is a skill also. It's not
You
something
have to
intuitive.
upgrade,
And I think
yes.
this is something which is linked with psychiatry as well. When do you feel sad? What is that time?
It starts with the mindful awareness. And just to add to how does creativity, at the biological level, talking now as a doctor with that awareness of your brain cells, it's basically neuroplasticity. From cradle to the grave, we are evolving. So up until the age of 89, you can start your marathon training and you can do it. I know people who've had complete nerve resections, but the nerve fibers still grow back because the body wants to evolve. It's just that we tell our minds that this is how I was born, this is how I am. मुझे तो गुस्सा आता है. That's just such a standard thing that we say. So this is how I am and this is how I will be. This is not how you will be. Neuroplasticity at a biological level, your neurons are changing, your synapses are changing. As Trishna mentioned, we can change our habits, we can change our thinking because the mind has to be put into it, and then the brain will also change. The structure of the brain also changes.
I think we'll come back to this point maybe if we have time to change. Sorry.
That happens to be chapter 10 of this book also, which is neuroplasticity. So which means if you're in a situation, what doctor is trying to say, and which I'll elaborate a little more, is if there are 2 people who have been exposed to one sort of an accident, and one person, his environment and surrounding, and the person himself or herself is feeling a particular thing that I'll never come out of this. That is how the mind will progress that information. Vis-a-vis someone else, surrounding and the person is something like, I will jump back.
We stole the chapters from each other. There's the same chapter in my book
So
too.
you can bounce back into something because you brought it up. That was not in the preset.
It's
So
in my book
at
too, so
any
it's literally the
stage,
same.
at any stage of life, you can bounce back is the extreme. You can upgrade, like I say, and that is one of the major tools.
I think this is a good time to talk about simplicity and rules and a structure, and that's where I'm going to get Abhijeet in the conversation. 7 rules for a calm mind in a chaotic world. It's a simple title, and I think what you've done is just, put a very simple structure for a very common man to navigate. Let's talk about these 7 rules very briefly, and then what is the most difficult thing which people face?
Sure. So So yeah, I mean, you put it quite correctly. I wanted to write a book for the average reader, for every one of us, because I think for the past few years at least, from what I'm seeing, anxiety and restlessness and pessimism, they have become sort of pervasive, and it's across age groups, like, be it a teenager, be it an adult, elderly. I think all of us are, suffering from these sort of issues. Some suffer more, some less, but I think each one of us can say that, they have had some episodes of, maybe anxiety or extreme panic. So, and I also had that. And I think, during COVID, I had a lot of such episodes. And so the book sort of came out of that. I drew from my life experiences. So I was an entrepreneur for 10 years. I ran a company as a solo founder. So I sort of built it from scratch, scaled it, and then sold it. So, you yourself are an entrepreneur, so you would know that it's a roller coaster ride. And doing it alone as a solo founder, I think it's more difficult. So, I sort of faced and saw a lot of things, had a lot of experiences. And then, during COVID, we all were sort of quite scared, and so was I. So I think all those experiences plus some research that I did, I've combined all those into, this sort of a framework which I wanted to write in a smooth and easy way, which, anyone can absorb. So I think the book is divided into two main sections: you and yourself, and you and the world. So the first section, I think Dr. Shefali and Trishna, they have spoken at length about it. And, those are the things I have also written about, like, you have to be self-aware, you have to get clarity, you have to sort of know and, accept who you are. Of course, change is the only constant and we all can change. But I think, as Einstein once said, that you should never judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. So I think we all have certain innate characteristics, a sort of a default personality that we should have the awareness of. So I think, so that's sort of the first chapter: get clarity, know, and also accept who you are, because acceptance is very tough. A lot of times we sort of know that, okay, this is who I am, these are the things I like, these are the environments I like to thrive in, but we might not want to accept, because acceptance might come with trade-offs. It might entail sort of going away from the tribes you're part of. Right? This happened with me because I was an entrepreneur. I was in the founder circle. I would get invited to big events. I was part of the CEO circle, so to speak. And then eventually, after I sold the company, I took a sabbatical and I sort of did a bit of consulting here and there. But deep down, I always wanted to, spend more time writing. Now, this is a very different thing. Like, if I go to an entrepreneurial circle today and say that I am an author, they would sort of raise eyebrows and say that, okay, what else are you doing? So that's the immediate question. So, but, I decided to sort of go on this path because I sort of decided to accept that this is who I am, this is what I want to do, and that might entail losing those tribes that I am part of, but so be it. So I think this kind of self-awareness also brings a lot, I would say it brings about a sense of peace within you, right? So that first section, you and yourself, it talks about this, it talks about expressing yourself through art, and it talks about adding structure to your thinking, how to stop overthinking, and how to sort of stop yourself from going into a downward spiral of thinking. So that is there. But I think the second section is where I would say things get a little more interesting. It's you and the world. Because the book's subtitle is that how to stay calm in a world that's determined to make you anxious. Right. And this is more true today than, any other time, because with social media and with so many distractions, I think with the news cycle, I think even if you work on yourself and you sort of work towards that inner peace, which that's where we have to start, we must do that. we also need to learn to deal with external situations. How do we go about that? So in the second section, so one of my favorite rules is about communicating well. Because miscommunication, be it, with your partner, with your boss, it's a huge source of sort of that mental restlessness, anxiety. So how to sort of communicate well, right? I think George Bernard Shaw said that the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. So, and this quote holds true. A lot of times we sort of communicate, but the message doesn't come across or go across, right? So I have written at length about that as to, for instance, words hurt us all, and that's usually a sort of big source of, sometimes it's a big source of sadness, anxiety. So how to ensure that, words don't hurt you, right? You have to understand that when someone is saying something to you, the power that words derive, they derive their power not from the speaker, they derive it from the listener, right? Imagine if we all were speaking to a room full of robots, right? No matter how well we spoke, would it make a difference? No. It's only because of the people who are sitting there and they are absorbing the words in their own ways. Right. That's how the words get their power. So, words are not bricks. They cannot hurt you if you don't want. Right? So these are the things, these are the small sort of ideas, the frameworks. And when you are in the midst of it, these small frameworks sort of help you because you can remember them easily. Right. Like if you are in such a situation, okay, words are not bricks. Great. So at least you can remember this one small thing, and maybe that will help you to sort of ground yourself then and there. Because when such situations happen, we sort of lose track. Whatever we have read, whatever we have learned, we tend to lose track, right? I think that's why I wanted to write it in a way which, anyone could sort of borrow small elements from the book and try and remember it during the times of panic, during the times of anxiety.
Right. Two things. First is the term overthinking, and I want to get all of you in the discussion because I think that's the most commonly used term everywhere, and we are in a time where there are so many choices and there's so much comparison. And generally, if you look at it, sadness, anger, a bunch of emotions, negative emotions come when you start comparing, right? You yourself said right now that when you left your entrepreneurial circle, people doubted you or what else do you do? And that could easily plant a doubt in your head that, am I taking the wrong choice? And then you start going in that overthinking loop. And then when you start overthinking, you start having a low self-esteem if you are not convinced by what you have decided, right? And if you look at the world today, everyone's battling this, right? So overthinking as a part of your framework, how do you ground yourself? And I would like to also get a clinical, more technical approach to this and the expression from art. When you have so much comparison, like मैं piano बजाता हूँ, मैं art paint करता हूँ, and then when I put it out on the world, that person is doing it better. Then am I not having that much value? And then that starts that loop which triggers all your mental health issues. Now, I'm only going to keep it for him first to answer the grounding, and then we'll come to you, doctor, and we'll then finish it with your point of view.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and this is a big thing. And this term that you have used, I think this is the most common phrase that everyone is well aware of, overthinking. And I think overthinking, so adding structure to your thinking, sometimes thinking more in the right direction might help. So I think you always need to be aware of the direction the thinking is going. Like if you are sort of getting into a big thing, let's say you're planning to buy a house, right? So in that case, I think thinking might help, right? You want to do your research, you want to speak to people, you want to think hard whether is this the right decision you're making. So maybe that kind of overthinking, you can do it if the direction is correct. I think the problem happens when your thinking is misguided. It is sort of fear-led, right? It is, you are more thinking in the direction of fear that, oh my God, what will happen if this happens? So I think a good way to go about it is to flip it, right? So if you are thinking that what could go wrong, maybe, think that, what could go right. So I'll give you an example. I'm from Bangalore. I moved to Bangalore 2 years back. I was in Delhi. And I've lived in Delhi for, I think, 25 years. So I sort of, I have a small kid. I have, my mother lives with me. So all of us moved to Bangalore. And Bangalore was completely an unknown city for me, right? So, so I was initially, a little scared because my circle is in Delhi and we have lived there. We know everything, and this is a completely new city. But so I would, look up all the possibilities of what could go wrong. But then I thought, why am I doing that? Why am I not thinking that, what could go right? What new things, I would get exposed to? I'd be making new friends. I would, my daughter would make new friends. It would be a better life. So why not? I think media is also responsible for this because, the way headlines are framed, they are, made to instill fear in you. I'll give you an example. There are like, let's say, 30% chances of you getting cancer if you do this. But there is that 70% that you might not get it, right? So I think we have to sort of flip it. So that is one framework. Other grounding techniques, I think we all probably know about it. The only problem is we don't remember to do it, like deep breathing, right? When you are stuck in that loop and you feel sort of, sense of panic starting within you, you just, breathe in at the count of 4 and then do a long exhale at the count of 8. The longer you exhale, the calmer you become. And you'll have to sort of, do it for 10, 20 times. Right. Don't just do it for 5 times and leave.
Right.
So it'll take some time to get into that effect. Right. So there are a lot of these techniques as well.
Right. Ma'am, what about your lens on this?
So thinking and cognition is my life. So talking about thinking is cognition, and talking about thinking about your thinking is called metacognition. Now, we know meta from all the shows that we watch, Meta Human and people with extra powers. So imagine metacognition means thinking about your thinking, how powerful that is. And a lot of what he mentioned is exactly what I resonate with, because he said that thinking in the wrong direction. So there's a section of the book which says, thoughts rule you, but if twisted, they could fool you. So that is exactly what he said, just in different words, different lexicon. But we're saying the same thing, that think rightly. If you think the way the universe is getting towards today, the black and white thinking, the entire catastrophic phenomenon, like we were talking about how we have shaped ourselves. I had a millennial who called me yesterday and she said, Doc, I have my exam, something is very wrong, I'm not anxious. So she was just, and if you go to office and you see someone sitting free on the desk and doing 8 count breathing, the boss will come and say, hey, am I not giving you enough work to do? So we live in an age where stress is kind of glorified. So we need to change that. This thinking itself needs to change. If you're leaving office in time because you've been super efficient, hey, I think I'm not giving you enough work. Let me work, give you some more. So we've stopped giving importance to wellness. We've stopped giving importance to calmness. We like looking stressed, and just like yesterday, Doc, it's my exam and I'm now stressed, so something must be very wrong. And
right.
that's how we've become. So to change that is the golden method, is untwisting your thinking. Identify the kink in the way you think, and then untwist your thinking using time-tested techniques, which we've done the homework for you. So, for example, this book also, Why Do I Feel So Sad, has these checklists that just use this checklist to see, are you thinking black and white? Just make this thought pass through these 10 methods, cross-examine your thought for validity. So if we learn all of these techniques and learn that my thought is actually not a fact, it is just a representation of the emotion in my mind. Right. A lot of people tell me, I thought that first we feel, because we feel so fast, and later we think. A lot of the times we feel threatened when we didn't even think whether someone was actually attacking us. We just felt left out when we were not selected for that panel or for that interview, for example. But the reasons were different. So if we stopped and thought, then we would not feel that negative emotion. So we need to take that time and not let it be like, hey, this is fire, my hand is burnt, I'll put my hand out. It's not that. There is a thought involved, and everything is about how you think. So you really want to change your life. You want to change your emotions. You want to change your narrative of self-criticism and unhappiness and, self-deprecation, all you need to do is change the way you think.
Lovely. Last point, ma'am, to close. Comparison art and
Instead of putting art as the thing, because I was listening
can
to
take
the
a
two
broader point of
panelists,
view.
I'm going to be taking two subjects here. One is, who do we spend maximum time in a day with in 24 hours? Ourselves, correct? So the narrative, like she said, because I'm going to take it from both the sides, is what we are giving ourselves through our thoughts. And if you're going to give that narrative, your narrative is usually surrounded by criticism, comparing, and staying in your comfort zone. Now, if you're going to be in that zone, will you be elevating yourself to not overthink? Will you be elevating yourself to not get envious? Will you be elevating yourself to have a good diet plan and have good sleep? Unlikely. So how do you break from these patterns is the loop where the overthinking is going to end. So you have, in order to grow, you have to go back to that section of the mind, which is a subconscious mind, which is another chapter, which is 95% of your mind, which is on autopilot. Since the time you were born to the environment that you were born in, to you were 8 years of age or so. That autopilot is what you need to change. So what we've been telling ourselves, like he rightly said, is, I'm being judged. Or, I've been told I'm not good enough. Now, or I've been told I look a particular way. Every way the narrative has been a not. And you have changed it to no, but I'm not like that. But the mind does not understand the word not. So if you want to be healthy, you have to tell your mind you're healthy. Like he said, it's never been flashed that 70% of the times good things are happening. We are concentrating on the times when it's the negation. So you have to concentrate on the other side in your day-to-day narrative. I want to be wealthy. There's no want, I am wealthy. So first you imagine it, then you action it, and then you get the result. You don't sit and think and crib that this is not happening to me because of so and so, and this is the blame, that is the circumstance, and that's why I'm not getting it. No matter where you start from and where you are, you can get to wherever you want to. The powerful tool is with you, your consciousness, your mind. So all these loops that you're facing is because you're not allowing yourself to grow. There's nobody else to blame. You have decided that you want to overthink. Now being here also is one of the tools. It's like a buffet, of a conversation and words, like we rightly spoke of. Even if you take back 4 words, they will be in your subconscious and how you action in your day-to-day life. That's what you have to look at. And coming back to where art comes into the picture, art is the biggest tool. Like there could be sessions where people don't come and speak, no matter who you're sitting with, whether with a healer, whether with a psychiatrist, whether with a friend. Alternative mediums of action will let you speak volumes without you saying a word. That's how people will get to know that you're going through something,
right,
that you're envisioning something, and then you channelize it. Of course, there's no comparison. Then there'll be medication and all of that. That's a more technical and a much needed way. But if you identify with it, like she rightly pointed in the beginning, that why not even visit a professional even when you're happy? Or why not visit the gym when you are, fit? Precisely, why not do the mental routine of putting good thoughts and good words to yourself more than anyone else? Self-talk. Maximum time you're spending with yourself. So self-talk has to be like every moment you're saying good things to yourself. What goes around comes around.
Great. Like everything else, this is also coming to its end, sadly. We could have spoken a lot, but I think we can take a few more questions. We just have 5 minutes. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Vivek, and firstly, in the true tradition of backbenchers, I've walked in late, so apologies. I guess I might have missed this section, but I think firstly, all of these books cover topics which are very needed in the world today. Calm and some grounding is required for the world at large, at a micro and a macro level. My question really is, how much do you think screens are impacting this state of chaos? We live and work on screens, so how much is that making a difference? And what are some ways to get around it beyond less screen time? Because sometimes it just doesn't happen. So it's a two-part question. The second is chaos and orderliness also go with culture, and there are different ways different cultures deal with it. I went through that transition 7 years back when I moved countries, and I realized a lot of things which were culturally okay here may not work there. So there was a bit of a reinvention. So screens and culture, that's my question really.
I think Abhijeet, you can take the second one. You moved from Delhi to Bangalore, a big change in culture. And
so I'll quickly take the first one as well. I think when it comes to screens, I think more than the medium, what are you doing on that screen? I mean, in my opinion, matters more. I think the short form content or anything that children are not spending, or even adults for that matter, if you are just scrolling through, so those are basically quick dopamine hits, and I think those are sort of destroying all our brains in a way. And I think there is a great book that has recently come out, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. I think it sort of advises that up till 16 years of age, children should not be on social media, and they should not be exposed to it at all, and primarily because of these reasons. So one thing is that you cannot really eliminate screens, no matter how much you want, from the lives of your kids or yourself. So how to be mindful about it, how to sort of limit it, that's the challenge, and that's what we should be thinking about. Now, when it comes to a shift in culture and how to sort of deal with the chaos, like as you rightly mentioned, that every culture, they have their own ways. I think because we spoke about, I don't know if you were there when we spoke about change and adaptability. I think that's what comes into play there.
The plasticity component, neuroplasticity.
Right.
When you try to do something new, a large part of therapy also that I do, simply for someone who's sad or anxious, every day learn, so I give a sort of a protocol. I don't make it very, very rigid, but when you want to do better with your mind and your body, I just say every day you have to do these 5 things. For example, I give them a list of 20 things and I say do any 5. And some of them are as simple as learn 1 new word a day. Okay, just 1 new word in any language, because you're enhancing certain, your synapses in your brain, you're enhancing the functioning, so that neuroplasticity again. Meditate. My point again is not every day. I say meditate 25 minutes a week. You spread it out and how much of it? 25 minutes a week. Exercise 3 hours a week. Cook a meal 3 days a week at least. Or 3 meals a week. How they say have at least 1 hot balanced meal a day. So we don't push it and be very rigid about it. But being flexible, breaking the psychological rigidity is basically your recipe for plasticity. So that's, what I would say for dealing with change and trying to make yourself flexible. I even say stand on one leg for as long as you can in the day, and you will notice that you're not getting as angry because you're dealing with that cramp in your muscle and you can take it. Likewise, you deal with that cramp in your brain when your boss is saying something that you don't like, and then you take it. So those are the ways you could actually become more adaptable. And just another point on the screen time, coming from a biological level, the neurons in your brain are literally dancing when you're watching a screen. So almost, let's say 60 minutes before you sleep, you should not be on the screen, because that's interfering with your brain. People who have epilepsy, a genuine medical disorder, their epilepsy can be enhanced. You can get into a seizure simply by looking at the screen. So that's a triggering factor. And we've noticed people with video gaming addiction, some of them have even done, we've had reports from Japan, it's been at least 24 hours of gaming, they've convulsed and they've died. That's the impact that it has on your brain, the screen. It has a very biological impact. Besides, the dopamine hit is also biological, but here it could actually send you into a tonic-clonic convulsion.
great.
And looking at the last perspective, because both have been covered, is when we are saying that don't say why not look at a screen. So why not look at a screen, especially for teenagers and children, like it was said, is if you look at it, when do you dream? Apart from, when you're sleeping. When do you look at newer perspectives? When do you imagine? If your mind is 24/7 going to be looking at something and just going to be active, you're not allowing processes, thought processes and reasoning processes to think of something which has not been there. How do you invent? How do you work around that? So that's one major reason when you just have to let be. Then when you go around it, because if you're always wanting that sort of excitement, that sort of engagement, that, you know, instant, that I have nothing to do, I'm going to get bored, let me just look at something. You're not letting that tool, which is your mind, which is the superpower, which has in the sense invented the screen, to even let you invent or even think about doing something more that you want to.
Super useful. Thank you.
So, anyone else? We can have a conversation after. I'm getting super anxious now. That the session has to end. I think I'll have to read a book very quickly. But we'll continue. Any questions? You can meet all the authors offline, I guess. Thank you. Very short and
Thank you.
sweet. I would have
Thank you.
loved to have further more chat on this. That brings us to the end of this chat.